Welcome to Lose Lips, all the things you wanted to say but didn't know how to say it. Today's topic is, will Ukraine war end when Putin dies? Now, this past week, there's been a lot of rumors surfacing that Putin has died, apparently suffering from a heart attack last Sunday and never fully recovering. So what will the Kremlin do? Of course, they are denying that he has died. And a day later, Putin was shown to be in a meeting with no less than Arabs and Hamas. But it has also been stated that Putin uses body doubles. If the rumor is true, this puts Russia in a state since the past 20 years have been run by Putin and for Putin. Without him, Russia is on shaky ground, as there is no one who will be in power. I say this because Putin was a strong presence in Russia, and with him gone, there will be a struggle as to who will take over for him, who will not only want to be in power, and who will be granted power. I say granted because there have been many names floating around as to who will succeed, but with the Kremlin in disarray, who will be allowed to serve in the absence of Putin? So look back on the start of the war. Putin declared that Ukraine had to be dissolved of Nazis, which is crazy because Russia has its own Nazis on their land. Then he switched and stated that Ukraine was not a state and belonged to Russia. This again was denied, as there are maps showing Ukraine as a state, despite what convoluted ideas Putin placed in his followers' heads. Then he stated that Russia should once again become the USSR and that other states would follow after Ukraine. But make no mistake, what once was thought to be a 3-day takeover has now gone well into its second year. This whole mess has shown the outside how Russia is run, with their corruption, gang mentality, and mob bosses running a country and stealing from ignorant people. Yes, I say ignorant because it does not take a genius to know that with the elite that is running the country while you are still using outside toilets, something is definitely wrong. The class differentiation within Russia is outstanding. There are very, very few that make a decent wage in Russia, which is why so many people sign up for the military, because they think that decent wages will help them and place them in a better lifestyle. But little did they know that not only would they be used as cannon fodder, but they would not be getting the wages as well. So, with all of this indecisiveness, will the war end when Putin dies? Sure, the Kremlin will want to cover it up for a while so that they can not only try and run the country themselves, but also to reap the benefits that they could get and have with Putin no longer in control. So let's think about this. There are many factors that could influence the outcome of the war, such as the political situation in Russia, the international response, the military strategy, and the public opinion. Some experts have speculated that Putin's death could lead to a quick end of the war, while others have argued that it would not make much difference or even worsen the situation. Some of the possible scenarios that could happen after Putin's death are a peaceful transition of power to a new leader who is willing to negotiate with Ukraine and end the conflict. This is unlikely to happen, as I mentioned before. Russian elite and Kremlin are about power. They are not likely to give up their power or their ill-gotten gains in favor of a truce, as they know they are still pariahs of the world. Although there have been reports that suggest that the elite are tired of the war since the sanctions have affected them and they want the war to end. A power struggle among different factions within the Russian elite, leading to instability and chaos in the country. Now, this I do see happening as a very possible scenario because who would want to give up power or even the ability to steal from the people? Who would want to give control over to someone else when they feel that they can do just as well as the next person? The elites are not only money hungry, but they like the power that they receive due to their status. Not one of them are going to be willing to give this up. A continuation of the war by a loyal successor who shares Putin's vision and agenda. This one is actually tricky because there have been rumors that not only are the elite upset that the war has continued for so long, but there have also been rumors that the FSB was in their own ranks have people within the group that are looking to either overthrow Putin or see him dead. So who do you believe in this instance? Not only has Putin been in power for so long and too long, as many believe, but Russia is Putin, and without Putin, how are you going to maintain the status quo with so much indecisiveness going on in the country? A radicalization of the war by a hardline successor who wants to escalate the violence and expand the invasion. At one point, there were rumors Prigozhin would take over. Now there are rumors that Nikolchev will take over. But who has a hardline view of the war and believes in a lot of what Putin stood for? Time will tell, and it will not be easy or even something that we would be able to expect. A fragmentation of the war by different regional commanders who act independently and pursue their own interests. This is something not only do I think won't happen, it will not be successful if it did happen. You can't have too many hands trying to control everything for it even to make sense or even work. No one can predict with certainty what will happen after Putin's death, but it is unlikely that it will automatically end the war. The war is not only about Putin, but also about Russia's interest, ambitions, and identity. And unfortunately, the people inside Russia that rule the country have their own interests at stake. They don't care for the common people, only what they have to lose or gain. Therefore, they will not want the war to end anytime soon so that they can continue to steal their ill gotten gains. I mean, think about it. They now have weapons coming from Korea, China, as well as goods from China. They aren't going to end anytime soon as long as they can meet the status quo, which is why they keep throwing men into the grinder. The war is also influenced by Ukraine's resilience, sovereignty, and democracy. Ukraine is not willing to let go of this until the Russians leave, and they have gotten back every inch of their territory. They are not willing to negotiate land, and they have that right. The war is also affected by the role of other countries, such as NATO, the EU, and China. The war is also shaped by the opinions and emotions of millions of people on both sides. Therefore, the war will not end if Putin dies unless there is a political solution that addresses the root causes of the conflict and respects the rights and aspirations of all parties involved. For this to happen, you have to have Russia pull back, and the war is not about ending at this point for Russia. It is about saving face. They can't just leave without looking like complete assholes to the world for what they did, or even as a failure to the Russian people. So they will grind on until they think they have gotten what they aimed for. So, with all of this going on, is Russia better off without Putin? There are many factors that could affect the future of Russia and its relations with the rest of the world, depending on who or what would replace Putin as the leader of the country. And as I mentioned, no one knows what would happen in this scenario. Some experts argue that Putin's departure could unleash instability and aggression inside Russia and abroad. They point out that Putin has been able to balance the competing interests and factions within the Russian elite and society, and that a new leader might face challenges to their legitimacy and authority. A power struggle or a violent transition could destabilize Russia, which is a nuclear power with a large military and cyber capabilities. A new leader might also try to boost their population by stoking nationalism and anti Western sentiments, or by escalating conflicts with neighboring countries, such as Ukraine, Georgia, or the Baltic states. So not only would you have a war with Ukraine, but underlying neighboring states as well. And don't forget, the Russian people are not that bright. They believe propaganda for what it is and don't challenge it. Other experts suggest that Putin's departure could open up opportunities for positive change in Russia and its foreign policy. They claim that Putin has been the main source of repression and aggression in Russia, and that his removal could create space for democratic and pluralistic forces to emerge. A new leader might be more willing to cooperate with the international community on issues such as human rights, climate change, or nuclear nonproliferation. A new leader might also be more responsive to the demands and aspirations of the Russian people who have been suffering from economic stagnation, corruption, and social problems under Putin's rule. The problem with this is the one person who could have achieved this, Putin placed in jail, and that is Navalny. With the brutality that has been shown in Ukraine, not many international communities are willing to trust Russia. And this is extended in the light of their friendship with terrorist states such as North Korea, Iran, and even the Hamas. Russia has placed itself in a tight corner. Ultimately, the answer to this question depends on many unknowns, such as who would succeed Putin, how they would even come to power, what their goals and preferences would be, how they would interact with other actors inside and outside Russia, and how the Russian public would react to the changes. Therefore, it is hard to predict with certainty whether Russia would be better off without Putin or not. However, it is important to keep an eye on the developments in Russia and to be prepared for different scenarios. And I do think this is occurring now with all of the rumors that Putin has died, or even that he does not have much time left to live. Ultimately, though, one can say that it is not great to have a leader in power for such a long time, or even for a country to depend on a leader for such a long time. But in this case, we see that greed won over challenging the status quo. Will it be their ultimate defeat? I don't know, but the world is definitely watching. Will anyone be upset when Putin dies? Not really. Only his mob family, who was there for the rewards. One thing I will say is that karma is a bitch, and when Putin does die, there is a special place in hell for him. It is unfortunate that the people in Russia are not that bright and didn't kick him out of power years ago. But then again, some people like to pretend that nothing is wrong until it is too late to make it better. That's all for now. Thank you again for listening to Lose Lips, and until the next time.